I cheated once, and he forgave me with a tarot card that said end. Not words, not a fight, not even a scream. Just a photo of the card, no caption, no explanation. And I knew. God, I knew. My name is Lila. I'm 32. And if you think that one mistake can't cost you everything, you've clearly never been handed your own funeral in the shape of a major arcana. It was just one time. That's what I told myself. That's what I told the mirror. That's what I told the man who looked me in the eyes, handed me his whole heart, and asked me if it was still safe in my hands. I said yes. And then I dropped it. The irony. It didn't even feel like cheating. Not in the moment. Not when I was 2 margaritas deep and fighting with Adam over text because he said he couldn't make my friend's birthday again. Not when the bar was too loud and this guy, Brandon, I think, put his hand on mine and said, "You deserve to be seen." No, the cheating came later. The guilt. The wreckage. The way I couldn't look Adam in the eye for days without hearing Brandon's voice echoing over the clink of ice in my glass. I didn't plan to confess. But secrets rot. They leak. They grow teeth. And eventually, mine bit its way out of my chest one night while Adam and I were brushing our teeth side by side, like we'd done for 7 years. I spat into the sink and said, "I need to tell you something." He didn't flinch. Just rinsed, wiped his mouth and said, "Okay." I told him. Everything. I expected rage. I expected him to throw something. I expected the floor to open up and swallow me. But Adam just stood there. Still. Quiet. Like he was watching me from the other side of a glass wall. Then he said, "Thank you for telling me," and walked out of the room. The days that followed were slow motion. He didn't leave. Didn't scream. Didn't text my mom like I half hoped he would so I could at least feel punished. He just changed. He stopped asking if I needed coffee in the morning. Stopped leaving little post-it notes in my lunch bag. Stopped reaching for me in bed. And I spiraled. Hard. I lit candles. I bought apology flowers. I signed us up for couples therapy he didn't ask for. And then I did the thing that would both save me and ruin me. I went to a tarot reader. I didn't even believe in tarot. But I needed something. A sign. A map. A way to make sense of how I could love someone and still betray them. A way to know if redemption was possible. The shop was called The Spiral Sun. Of course it was. Sage in the air, crystals on the counter. A woman named Nova with silver braids and eyes that looked like they knew everything I was too afraid to admit. I sat down. Told her I made a mistake. Asked what was next. She shuffled slowly, reverently, like she was holding live wire. Then she pulled a card and laid it on the table. Death. My heart dropped. But Nova smiled. "Don't panic," she said. "This isn't literal. Death means transformation, the end of an old cycle, the beginning of a new one." A beginning. That's what I clung to. I left that shop thinking, maybe Adam and I could rebuild. Maybe he was my new chapter. Maybe that card was hope. What I didn't know. Adam had already pulled his own card. And to him, end wasn't a metaphor. The first thing you need to know about Adam is that he doesn't believe in drama. He believes in routines, in lists, in logical conversations over emotional spirals. He's the guy who reads appliance manuals before pressing the power button. He's the man who makes chili on Sundays, mows the lawn every second Saturday, and has never left a text unanswered longer than 10 minutes. In short, Adam is the human embodiment of stability. And I loved that about him until I didn't. Until I started to feel like I was drowning in the calm. Until I forgot that consistency is a kind of romance too. Until someone else's messy attention felt more exciting than the quiet certainty of being loved without conditions. And maybe that's the part that stings the most. Because he didn't stop loving me. I stopped appreciating the way he did it. After I confessed, we didn't talk much. We moved around each other like co-tenants instead of soulmates. Meals were eaten in silence. His phone stayed face down. Mine stayed untouched, like it could explode if I made one wrong swipe. I offered space. He didn't say if he wanted it. I offered therapy. He nodded, then forgot to schedule it. I offered to leave. He said it's still our house, for now. For now. Those two words hung in the air like smoke from a fire I had started. The night I went to the tarot reader, I came home buzzing with fragile hope. The reading had felt like permission. Death didn't mean ruin, it meant rebirth. A new cycle, a new chance. I wanted to believe the universe was on my side, whispering, "You can fix this." I found Adam on the couch, watching something forgettable. He didn't look at me as I sat down beside him. "I went to a tarot reader," I said. He blinked once, still watching the screen. "Okay." She pulled the death card. That got his attention. He looked at me, brows raised. "Are you dying?" I let out a nervous laugh. "No, it means change, ending one cycle to begin another." He stared at me for a long beat. Then he said, "Yeah, that sounds right." I smiled too soon. Because I didn't realize he wasn't talking about us changing. He was talking about him. The next day, he started sleeping in the guest room. No explanation. No fight. Just quietly moved his pillow and his toothbrush and a book he never finished into the room we only ever used when his parents visited. I stood in the hallway and watched him tuck the sheet like he was staying at a hotel. "Is this temporary?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just closed the door. Over the next few days, I tried everything. I made his favorite dinner. He ate it and said thanks like I was a waitress. I folded his laundry extra neat. He redid it like always. I sent him a playlist titled New Chapter. He left it unopened. The only thing he responded to was silence. So I gave him space. Went about my day. Worked, breathed, meditated. Tried to believe the tarot reader's smile meant something more than just a customer service reflex. But every night, I stared at the closed door across the hall and wondered if death was a metaphor for hope or a warning I hadn't listened to. A week later, I found him in the backyard. Sitting on the grass, barefoot, staring up at the sky like it had something to say. I sat beside him. He didn't move away. "I'm still here," I whispered. "I know. I want to fix this." Silence. Then he said, "You know I loved you, right?" "Loved?" I asked, my voice catching on the past tense. He looked at me, not coldly, not cruelly, just final. "I loved you, but I don't think I know how to be with someone who made me feel disposable." "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to stay," he interrupted. We sat there, breathing the same air, mourning the same thing. But from opposite sides of the grave. That night, I lit candles again. Not for a spell. Not for the universe. Just because I needed something warm. I pulled the tarot card from my bag and stared at it. Death. Still beautiful, still terrifying. The art showed a white rose blooming in the hand of a skeleton. Life from loss. I thought I understood it. I didn't. Because I still believed the flower was us. What I didn't see was that I was the skeleton. And he was about to bloom without me. There's a kind of desperation that doesn't look like begging. It looks like pouring his favorite cereal before he wakes up and hopping he notices. It looks like leaving the hallway light on so he doesn't stub his toe walking to the guest room. It looks like laughing too loud when he tells a joke to remind him, "See, I still think you're funny." It looks like Googling, "How long does it take to rebuild trust after infidelity?" at 3 a.m. with your screen dimmed so he won't see the glow under the door. I did all of it. Not because I was manipulative. Not because I thought it would fix anything overnight. But because I couldn't stand how easy he made it look. This slow erasure of our marriage. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was just done. And that scared me more than yelling ever could. For the first few weeks, he maintained this eerie neutrality. We shared space, shared silence, shared chores. But nothing else. No glances, no touches, no friction. Just clean detachment. It was like living with someone who had died and come back as a ghost that couldn't remember your name. I started therapy. My own idea. He didn't ask. I didn't tell him right away. But something about that death card, it echoed louder in my head with every passing day. Not like a threat. More like a riddle I was too scared to solve. So I walked into that office, looked my therapist in the eye, and said the hardest sentence of my life. I cheated on a good man because I forgot how to be present in a safe relationship. She didn't flinch. Just nodded like she'd heard that one before. I went back the next week, and the week after. I started to see myself more clearly. The insecurities, the boredom I mistook for emotional neglect. The way I used emotional chaos as a metric for love. The way I kept mistaking excitement for connection. And I realized something awful. I hadn't cheated on Adam because he was lacking. I cheated because I couldn't sit with the feeling of being loved without conditions. I felt like an imposter in his devotion. So I burned it down before he could see the cracks. Except he never did. Because he believed in me. Even when I didn't. One afternoon, I sat him down. "I've been in therapy," I said. He blinked. "Oh. For a few weeks now, I'm not telling you to prove something, I'm just telling you because I want to be different." He nodded slowly. "I'm glad you're doing that." A silence. Then he added, "But it doesn't mean I'm coming back." I nodded too. "Okay." After that, things got stranger. Lighter in a way. We had short conversations. He let me make dinner once or twice. He even helped me fix the shower knob when it broke, cracking a small smile when I called him the tool guy. It felt like, maybe this was the thaw. Maybe death was a new beginning. Maybe the past was decomposing, so something new could bloom. Maybe, just maybe, we were going to make it. I told myself that on repeat. Wrote it in my journal. Tarot card on my bedside table, face up like a mantra. Endings, beginnings, transformation. Then came the email. I remember it exactly. Sunday morning, sunlight on the table, mug in my hand, my laptop open to a grocery list. And then, ding. Subject line, legal notification, petition for dissolution of marriage. Sender, AJ Rivers-esque. Recipient, me. At first, I didn't understand. I read it 3 times before I felt the blood leave my face. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a letter. It was a document. Cold, professional, signed. I ran down the hall. Threw open the guest room door. He was folding laundry. He looked up calmed. "You filed for divorce." He nodded, "Yes. But why didn't you talk to me?" His eyes met mine, tired, quiet, and unbearably final. "Because we already did talk," he said, "and you told me who you were the moment you cheated." I shook my head. "I'm trying, Adam, I'm doing the work, I thought you saw that." "I do," he said, "but I'm not staying in a marriage out of obligation to your growth." I swallowed hard. "You could have just told me." He nodded once, then walked past me back to the laundry. I followed him numb. He turned around and handed me something from the table. A card. Not a Hallmark card. A tarot card. Death. The same exact card. On the back, a sticky note. 3 words in Adam's handwriting. I was yours. I was real. I was the end. And that was it. That was his goodbye. Not in flames. Not in tears. But in symbolism that echoed louder than anything I had ever said. Because to me, death had meant hope. To him, it had always meant me. After he handed me that card, I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't chase him down the hallway, begging him to talk. I just stood there, tarot card in one hand, the echo of his message in my ears like static, and realized I had completely misunderstood everything. I had turned the symbol of our death into a metaphor for our rebirth. He had used it for what it was, a gravestone. And all this time, while I was building a new version of us in my mind, he had been quietly writing the eulogy. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not his room. Not our old room. The office on the floor, surrounded by unpaid bills and forgotten paperwork. I curled up in a fleece blanket that still smelled like dryer sheets and denial. And for the first time since my confession, I cried without trying to control it. Ugly sobs. Wet cheeks. No background music. No sage burning. Just me and the raw realization that I wasn't going to be forgiven the way I'd fantasized. Because forgiveness isn't the same as reunion. Sometimes, forgiveness is just the decision not to destroy you on the way out. And Adam, he was the kind of man who left clean. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. I had seen it on grocery lists, sticky notes, love letters from the early years. Inside was one sentence, centered in the middle of the page. I hope the next person learns to stay before it's too late. No signature. No punctuation. Just that. And it gutted me. Because I knew what he meant. He wasn't talking about me finding someone new. He was talking about himself and whoever he might love next. He was already moving forward. Already imagining a life where the person in his bed didn't throw it all away for one night of being seen. I went back to the tarot shop that afternoon. Nova, the reader, smiled at me like she remembered. Back for clarity, she asked. No, I said, back for closure. She gestured for me to sit. I placed the card on the table, the same death card she'd pulled weeks ago. Her brows rose. Ah, she said, so it played out. I swallowed. Yeah, but I think I misread the message. Nova tilted her head. Did you? I frowned. I thought it meant a new beginning for us. She smiled, soft and sad. It did, just not the one you wanted. I stared at her. She continued. The death card doesn't promise reunions. It promises release. The start of something new often requires the burial of something you thought would last forever. That something was my marriage. That something was your illusion. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Nova handed me a tissue. Then, without asking, she pulled another card. The Tower. Of course. Sudden upheaval, catastrophic change, destruction of the foundation. I laughed through the tears. You really don't pull punches. She grinned. The cards don't lie, they just wait until you're ready to hear them. After that, I stopped looking for magic. I stopped trying to decode every coincidence as a sign. Stopped listening to reconciliation readings on YouTube. Stopped trying to twist the pain into a prophecy. I let it be what it was. The consequence of a choice. Not fate. Not karma. Not a soul contract gone sour. Just a woman who hurt someone and learned that some people leave even when they still love you. Especially when they love themselves more. Adam moved out 3 weeks later. I didn't fight it. Didn't ask for a second chance. Didn't fall to my knees and perform regret like a character in a movie. I stood by the door and handed him the last box. Inside was the tarot card. And a note of my own. You were my beginning, too. And I'm sorry that I made myself your end. He nodded once. Eyes glassy, but no tears. He didn't kiss my forehead. Didn't hold me. Just said, "Goodbye, Lila." And walked out of the life we built. You don't really understand what alone feels like until the silence starts talking back. After Adam moved out, the quiet filled every inch of the apartment like fog. Not just the absence of his footsteps, or the lack of keys in the bowl by the door, but the echo of a life I had lived for 7 years. The inside jokes I could still hear in the walls. The mugs he always used, untouched in the cabinet. The scent of cedar and clean cots that lingered on the pillow he hadn't taken. It was like living inside a ghost story where I was the haunted one. The first week, I kept telling myself this was just a separation. That he'd cool off. That space would bring him clarity. That I'd wake up to a text saying, "Let's talk." It didn't come. What came instead? A Venmo notification for half the rent. Even in heartbreak, Adam was responsible. I called him once. Okay, 5 times. On the 6th, he picked up. "Lila," he said calmly. "I just wanted to hear your voice." He sighed, not annoyed, just tired. "What do you want me to say?" "I miss you." Silence. "I still love you," I added. Longer silence. "Then, I believe you, but I don't know what you want from me." "I want to fix it." He paused. "I don't." And that was the difference between us. I was still trying to resuscitate the past. He had already buried it. That night, I lit a candle. Old habits die hard. I pulled a card. 5 of Cups. Grief, regret, focusing on what's lost instead of what remains. I stared at it for an hour. Because it wasn't just a card anymore, it was a mirror. I was mourning a version of myself that no longer fit inside the life I'd destroyed. I went back to therapy. Harder this time, rawer. "I feel like I've lost my entire identity," I told my therapist. "No," she said, "you're just finally meeting yourself without his reflection." It was terrifying. Because for years, I had only ever defined myself through his eyes. As his partner. His wife. His priority. Now I had to ask, who was I without Adam? Without being the one he picked? And worse, what kind of woman cheats on the one man who never asked her to be anything more than herself? I started writing letters to him I never sent. Some were apologies. Some were memories. Some were rage-filled confessions that made me sob and rip the page in half. One just said, "You gave me safety, I gave you doubt." That one hurt the most. Because it was true. I heard from mutual friends that he was doing well. He started running again. Was working longer hours. Adopted a dog from the shelter we used to volunteer at. Her name was Luna. I scrolled through his Instagram one night, new photos, new routines. He looked peaceful. Not smiling too big, not pretending. Just present. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling. Because he had moved forward with quiet dignity. And I was still stuck in the spiral. In my worst moments, I fantasized that he'd come back. That he'd knock on the door, tell me he missed me too, and we'd rebuild. But that version of Adam, the one who would stay for the sake of history, he died the day I betrayed him. The new Adam, he wasn't interested in rebuilding something that had already crumbled at the foundation. One night, I saw him at the grocery store. He didn't see me at first. He was in the produce section, holding Luna's leash, comparing apples. I watched him from behind a display of avocados. Just existing. Unburdened. And then he saw me. We locked eyes. He nodded. Polite. Distant. No hate. Just closure. I smiled weakly and waved. He returned it just once. Then walked away. I cried in the cereal aisle. Because that's where it finally hit me. He had forgiven me. But he wasn't mine anymore. And no amount of therapy, or tears, or candles, or tarot cards was going to rewrite that. There's a strange kind of humiliation that comes from being forgiven by someone you were secretly hoping would stay angry. Because anger means attachment. It means there's still something burning under the surface, something that could, maybe, be rekindled. But Adam's forgiveness, it wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was surgical. Clean. Final. Like he'd excised me from his life with the precision of a surgeon removing a benign tumor. No hate, no scars, just the certainty that it no longer belonged. I was still in therapy. Still journaling. Still trying to find the version of myself that didn't depend on being chosen to feel whole. But then something happened. A friend invited me to a small housewarming gathering. Nothing major, just wine, music, a few familiar faces I hadn't seen since the divorce, which is how people referred to it even though it hadn't technically finalized yet. I debated going. But something in me said, it's time to be seen without him. So I went. And there he was. Adam. In the corner, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Luna curled at his feet like the world's most photogenic grief support dog. He looked good. Not performative good. Not revenge body good. Just calm. He saw me. And smiled. A soft, polite smile, not for me, for the room, for the shared space, for the sake of not making a scene. He walked over. My heart raced. Hey, Lila. Hey. You look well. So do you. He gestured to the glass in my hand, still a Malbec girl. I laughed quietly. You remember? Of course I do. We stood in silence for a second. Then he said something that caught me off guard. I kept the card. I blinked, the death card. He nodded, it's framed on my desk. Seriously? He shrugged. It reminds me that sometimes endings are merciful. I swallowed. Do you ever wish it had gone differently? Adam paused, thought, measured as always. No, he said, I wish it had never happened, but once it did, I'm grateful it ended the way it did, clean. I looked at him. I loved you, I said without ceremony. He nodded, I know. I still do. He smiled, just a little. That's okay, but I don't. Not cold. Not unkind. Just real. We didn't talk much after that. We drifted to opposite sides of the party, orbiting around mutual friends who didn't ask questions. Before he left, he waved at me across the room. I waved back. And that was it. No big scene. No dramatic exit. No last-ditch confession. Just two people who once built a life. And now just shared the memory of it. I walked home that night with bare feet in my heels, thinking about the word mercy. Because that's what it had become. Not punishment. Not penance. But mercy. Adam didn't stay. He didn't scream. He didn't destroy me. He forgave me. And then he left. And somehow, that was the most brutal ending of all. Because it gave me no villain to blame. No fire to point at. Just the ash. And my own hands covered in soot. When I got home, I took the death card out of my drawer. I had kept it all this time, but I'd never looked at it the same way since the day Adam handed me the note. I flipped it over. On the back I wrote, "You were never meant to resurrect what was already gone." Then I burned it. Safely. Ceremonially. Like a quiet goodbye to a version of myself I no longer wanted to protect. Because the card wasn't a promise. It was a prophecy. And it had come true. You think the worst part of losing someone will be the silence they leave behind. But it's not. It's the noise inside your own head, every memory, every regret, every what if playing on loop like a mixtape you can't turn off. It's the realization that you weren't the victim of some cosmic betrayal. You were the architect of your own ending. And when that truth finally settles, it doesn't scream. It whispers, "You did this, now live with it." It's been 8 months since Adam moved out. The divorce is finalized. The apartment is no longer mine. I left it when the lease ended, and I didn't ask for the couch or the photos or the wedding dishes. He didn't offer. We both understood there was no splitting a life that had already been disassembled. I live in a smaller space now. Just one bedroom. White walls, quiet light. No shared toothbrushes, no framed engagement shots, no backup towels for guests. It's lonelier than I thought it would be. But it's also cleaner. Not in the Marie Kondo sense. In the I no longer have to perform for anyone's sense. I still go to therapy. I still journal. I still pull a tarot card some mornings, not because I think it knows the future, but because it helps me ask better questions. Like, what am I avoiding today? What do I need to grieve that I'm still gripping with white knuckles? What part of me is still hopping he'll call, even now? I never dated Brandon again. The man I cheated with, he texted a few times after that night. I ghosted him. Not because I blamed him, but because I finally realized what I had been looking for wasn't passion. It was permission. Permission to escape a life I felt unworthy of. A life where love was stable, unconditional, safe. And I couldn't handle that. Not because of him. Because of me. So now I rebuild. Not my marriage. Not my reputation. Myself. And not the curated, filtered version. The real one. The one who flinches at compliments because she doesn't know how to receive. The one who craves chaos because quiet love feels foreign. The one who destroyed something beautiful and is learning, slowly, painfully, to forgive herself not with excuses but with truth. I still think about Adam. Not in a maybe he'll come back way. More like, when I see a dog at the park that looks like Luna. When someone offers me Malbec without asking. When I fold my laundry and remember the way he used to tuck in corners like a hotel pro. And sometimes, just sometimes, I imagine the life we could have had if I had learned how to love myself before I asked someone else to do it for me. I kept one thing from our marriage. A tiny wooden box he gave me on our 3rd anniversary. Inside, he'd written a note that said, "This is for the pieces of you that don't fit anywhere else. I love all of them." For a long time, I didn't understand what that meant. Now I do. Some parts of us are jagged, ugly, hard to love, but they're ours. And they don't need to be hidden to be healed. I don't wear a ring anymore. Obviously. But I do wear a tiny silver pendant now. It's a crescent moon, something new, something quiet. Something that reminds me that even after darkness, there's always another phase. Another chance. Not to rewrite the past, but to be better in the present. To anyone who's ever made a mistake they can't undo. I won't sugarcoat it. Sometimes you lose the person. Sometimes you lose the life. Sometimes there's no second chance. But there is a second self. One that isn't built on shame, but awareness. One that doesn't ask the universe to fix it, but says, "I'll walk forward anyway." One that doesn't beg for forgiveness, because she's busy learning how to earn her own trust back first. That's who I'm trying to be now. Not Adam's wife. Not the girl who broke him. Not the woman who clung to tarot cards and begged them to save her. Just me. Still here. Still flawed. Still healing. But this time, I'm not pulling cards looking for signs. I'm building a life I don't need to escape from. And that's the real new beginning. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.